Welcome to Podcast with Nanz. On today's episode, I'll be interviewing Amit Parbhucharan. Hi Amit, how are you?
Hi Nandini, thanks for having me on your platform today.
Thanks for being here with me. In this segment of our podcast, we're discussing the Sea of Many Rivers and how you were a part of it. Can you remember when or how we met or got in touch?
Exactly that, right? Sea of Many Rivers was your show, right?
Yes.
And that's exactly how we became acquainted, obviously before that. But
Yeah.
certainly an interesting journey. You know, as these rivers flowed in, I think our relationship and acquaintances flowed in over the years on
And
that. Right?
grew, and definitely grew.
Yeah.
So I just want to share how I got into touch with you. So we have a common friend, Lata,
Yes.
and she was also a very important part of the show, a dancer, and she gave me your number, and I remember saying, Lata, what am I going to do with this number? Who is this person? Who is Amit? What is Amit going to do? So she says, Nanz, just give it a chance, give it a shot, call Amit, let's see what happens. And really magic happened for me. I called you and we had a chat and found out that you have this hashtag about last night, and you came to interview me. And I remember looking at the show ticket sales the one night, and we literally had only 14 tickets sold. It was August, the show was in September, and after that interview with you, we were almost sold out, completely sold out. Did you know that?
No, you're disclosing that to me now. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because I think that's the power of influence and the power of social media, right? Where, you know, one can be exposed on a platform and you just don't know who's watching it or listening to it. And,
Yeah.
exactly like your podcast platform here. And, through that you expose or have an opportunity to expose so much. So, I'm glad it had a positive impact in your circumstance.
Not just positive, a huge impact. And
great.
yeah, it was just the most wonderful thing. It gives me goosebumps up until today when I even talk about it, because it's unbelievable how that unfolded. Tell me about last night. Hashtag about last night. How did that start?
Well, an interesting journey. I mean, I think by nature I was always an introvert and
Yes.
never really kind of, got out there on the social scene.
Yeah.
And through my community involvement and activism, it kind of started taking me a lot into social events.
Okay. What sort of
And
community events?
basically, just a lot of it just started off with charity stuff,
Okay.
And going out to a lot of these events, either because I was invited, or B, I just felt there was some good cause, and because of my relationship and network with people, getting out there and it's like, hey Amit, can you just attend our event, or we're doing this, would you be interested to buy a ticket? Like,
Yeah.
absolutely, I'll come, I'll support you guys, exactly as we did for your show, right?
Yes.
And through that, people are doing really amazing good things out there,
Yeah.
touching lives, touching families. And the biggest challenge is that a lot of these small organizations don't have a marketing budget, a marketing person.
Yeah.
It's a 3-person kind of charity that's doing
Yeah.
what they can to make a difference. And through that, a guy with a camera and a guy with a phone, just attending this thing, it's like, people need to know a bit more about this.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. It was a journey, of course, it doesn't happen instantly.
Yeah.
But I would attend these things, and the next day I'll start telling initially my family that I went for this last night.
Yeah.
And it's like, check this out. And then, my friends. And then from that, because I was on social media and things, I just like extended the personal message from WhatsApp, etc., to putting it on my Facebook and then
Yeah.
Instagram, etc. And there it was born. Hashtag about last night. And then people started latching on to, what did you do last night? Where did you go?
Yeah.
And it just became more and more. And it's like I found myself initially a Saturday night going to some social function.
Yeah.
Then it became a Sunday. Then it became a Friday. That's an all weekend thing. And then, as we know, these things extend into midweeks night. So Wednesday night you had some book launch or charity thing.
Yeah.
And people just kind of want you to attend because, of course, now you're showcasing the stuff out there and people get awareness about it. Otherwise, nobody knows it ever happened. You know, and
Exactly.
that's the reality.
And especially for smaller organizations. I mean, like you said, not everybody has a budget for marketing, although marketing forms such a huge part of doing live productions or whatever else.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And you know, that said, I mean, if they do try to do something, there's always somebody out there that will do it, but it comes as a charge or a cost, right?
cost,
And
yeah.
I'm not professing to be a professional in any shape, way, or form. And it was just a guy with a phone. And through that, if I can help you, I'll help you.
But I
You know?
think that's what made you so successful at doing what you did, because I think you were just a normal guy, and with a cell phone, like you say, but you were relatable, and I think that's what people, sort of attached itself to, the fact that you just,
Yeah, and I think,
they could relate to.
extending on that, we definitely come from very humble beginnings.
Yeah,
And exactly as you say, people can relate to an average person that, you know, I'm not a designer person. I don't wear brand stuff at all. Simple
yeah,
guy, you never see me
normal.
with a brand. And like you're saying, people can associate with that. And where I went was things that will cost you 20 rand or 50 rand or 100 rand to go for. So it's not like these events that's costing you 1,000 rand to enter, and
Large
all of a
budget.
sudden it's this elite exclusive thing. Of course, sometimes you do get invited for those.
Yeah,
Very nice food, and whoever knows me out there knows I love my food. Talking about food, it's interesting because when one looks at social media and the power of social media, there's only three things that sells.
yeah,
Okay, fashion, food, and fun.
the
And
three F's, as you call them.
yeah, absolutely, three Fs. Yeah. So, on that basis, if you kind of latch on to those three aspects or elements, and you latch that into social media, it can really bring you an amazing influence. Anything else, it's not the same.
So
Social
that's,
media is meant for social,
yeah,
and a lot of people and businesses, small businesses especially, fail to realize that. I see a lot of, or engage with a lot of people where I'm helping them, nurture their business or something. And it's like, we want to get onto social media, and we hear this thing about Instagram and Facebook, and it's like, what do you do? And it's like, they're selling this. And it's like, does it meet those three criteria? If it's not, you're going to find it hard. And they falsely, they have this perception that being on social media is going to bring them business, and it doesn't.
no,
The reality is that you got to meet those three F's.
yes,
So
the
that's
recipe
why
for
if
success.
you're a beauty spa or if you
Yeah.
are a dance group or something,
Yeah.
it's part of those three concepts, right? Or the three F's.
Yeah,
So on that basis, yeah, and so I guess initially a lot of it stemmed with dance groups and dance academies like yourselves, and then becoming acquainted with a lot of them. And again, we have such a phenomenal platter of artists in this country. And how do we serve that up? And this country is sorely missing that. And when you start exposing it and people start seeing it, obviously having that Indian heritage, a lot of it was Indian initially.
yeah,
But in terms of my relationships and my acquaintances, I mean, they span different cultures, different races. And it's so interesting that when cross cultures see these things and it's like, that looks interesting. How do I go to the next one, or tell us about it? And, I think part of our spirit in South Africa, and it's very important for South Africa,
yeah,
is to create this integration. We're struggling,
yeah,
but it needs more of it. And there's certain groups and artists out there that have embraced that
Yeah.
and have succeeded tremendously. And we need more of that. We're just lacking that capability and capacity and funding,
Yeah.
to make it all happen.
yeah. I'm of the same opinion, and I think that's how the idea of the Sea of Many Rivers was formed. You've been to that show. What was your opinion of it?
So interesting question, and I guess part of going to, besides charity functions, a lot of it obviously has some form of dance or sing item.
Yeah,
Also going to a lot of dance academy kind of shows and things. And yes, their focus is on showcasing, their genre or their dance academy. But a lot of what I was finding is that it's very singular or focused in what they do, which
Yeah.
is great. But in order to kind of bring things to mainstream and in order to kind of succeed in exposing this in a better way,
yeah,
one has to transcend that. And I think you did that so well, because as much as this was so-called your show and your dance academy show,
Yeah.
you opened it up and you embraced different dance forms and art forms and groups,
Yeah.
coming in. And so me as an audience member sitting there,
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting there twiddling my thumb and it's like, now is yet another Kathak dance or yet another item that's Bollywood.
Yeah.
You brought in hip hop and you brought in different type of genres that an audience member typically going to an Indian type show
Yeah.
doesn't typically see or experience. And I think that was a breath of fresh air, and I congratulate you and your team for actually A, having the concept and the creative spirit to do that,
Thank
but
you.
B, bringing it, to the theater that we could experience as an audience member. And I'm taking that Amit Parbhucharan influencer hat off and putting on an audience hat. And to me, when a show can touch me, just when I'm tapping my foot on almost every beat and every song, that's what an audience wants.
Wow.
So
That really warms my heart. Thank you so much.
you can wipe that tear.
Yeah,
I
thank
see
you.
it. No, but it's the reality, and it's exactly that point, right? When things touch you, you feel emotionally connected.
Attached, yeah.
And until we have an emotional connection to something, it's very hard. And we suffer with that in the arts, because look at a genre like pop. Fabulous. In today, out tomorrow. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't have that emotional connection. You take a good artist, a real good jazz or soul artist, somebody like, George Benson or Anita Baker. When you listen to that music, I mean, 20, 30 years on, you can still listen to it and it still sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
And a lot of the pop today is commercial pop. So a lot of the music is synthesized, even the vocals are synthesized.
Yeah.
And your experience listening to them on radio or on TV or YouTube versus now going to a live event and trying to listen to them, it's chalk and cheese in terms of your experience, because the vocals are not what you acquainted to in terms
Yeah.
of that.
Definitely.
So commercial pop, great, but we need some emotional connection, and if more artists can see that or learn that technique, it's
Yeah.
important.
I think so. I think so. And I think everything that you've mentioned warms my heart so much, because that's everything I've ever wanted out of that show. I did it so that not everybody that performed at that show actually ever performed on a stage. And it was just my aim and ambition at the time to give kids the opportunity, because not everybody can. Like, it's not something that everybody can do. And it was that experience for me was just completely heartwarming. And
But I tell you, I mean, as an audience member, I could not tell, or we could not judge that it was Group One's first performance ever,
yeah,
because I think you guys have put a lot of effort into it to make sure that the routine was well rehearsed, well practiced. So by the time it hit that main stage, you know, again, like I said, we could have that emotional connection, and it's quite apt that you called the show the Sea of Many Rivers, because there's so many attributes out there to a large river. Take the one in Gauteng, like the Vaal. It's spread all over, but when it comes together and it hits this really big river,
yeah,
so you took these small rivers, different artists, different genres, young talent, of course, mixing it with some traditional and mature talent.
yeah.
But when this thing all came together and hit this big river, I mean, as an audience member, what an experience. That's all I can say. And so I applaud you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. It means so much to me. Thank you so much. Let's go back to you. Tell me about you as a kid growing up.
As a kid.
You said
oh,
you were an
wow.
introvert. How
Yeah.
did you go from introvert to being a community person?
Well, how far back? Are we going back to like 5 years?
No, we're
Nah,
going
nah.
back to you growing up as a kid.
A typical boy initially, of course, naughty character, and we grew up humble beginnings, single parent home.
Sure.
My dad passed on when I was just 6 months, and we moved from Durban. And at that point, remember the crossing from Durban to from KZN or Natal as it was to the old Transvaal was
It's a-
not allowed.
it's a giant leap.
I have vivid memories, not of course deep memories, but I still remember stopping somewhere in Van Reenen where the truck driver had to change the number plate, from at that time ND to TJ,
Oh,
and
wow.
crossing the border, and of course it was a new transition, and I applaud my mum who's late today for you know taking that bold step, bringing the opportunity to us. And of course, I grew up in a small two-bedroom house in Lens all our life. And, um, yeah, it's emotional. uh,
It's okay.
yeah, I guess, when one comes from humble beginnings, you have a strong appreciation
Definitely.
for things. And things could mean lots of different things, right? I mean, from financial stability to just being given an opportunity. I have a strong memory where we had absolutely nothing. And I still remember the one Diwali, all my mom could afford was a pop-up, and that's all we had for Diwali. But she never denied us. And the old traditional thing about when it's your birthday and you give stuff in school, and all she could afford was a packet of sweets, and that's what the kids got. But we gave out sweets, right? And
Yes.
it was like the best thing. You were the don in the class now because you did that.
Yeah.
But also grateful to my siblings. I'm the youngest of three,
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunity that they have created for me and given me, because without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. The only reason I got to study was because they funded me and they supported me, and so I'm very grateful for that.
You're very lucky.
We're quite close in that way, and we don't see each other much these days. We're quite spread, etc. But if the call is there, you know, it's family and we're there.
Yeah, everybody's together.
So of course, uh, my mum was latched into our community, which was Lenasia at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and was very much part of the Gandhi Walk, which at that time was a good and big event, but certainly not branded outside of Lenasia.
Yeah.
And I was never really involved. Of course, we should walk the Gandhi Walk, but
Yeah.
she was.
What was the initial initiative behind the Gandhi Walk?
Oh, it's interesting. So, remember, as part of the whole Group Areas Act, Indians were forced out of their traditional areas, and they were kind of all lumped into, Lenasia behind Soweto, or kind of the East Rand.
Yeah.
And the original Gandhi Hall was actually in Fox Street in town. It's got deep history.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, a lot of the Gujarati community, because there was actually a Gujarati school there. So when they were forced into Lenasia, really had no place of congregation or no place of, basically hosting at that
Community
time the
events.
community stuff.
Yeah.
And so the idea was born of establishing this thing called the Gandhi Hall, which was originally going to be called the Mahatma Gandhi Hall.
Okay.
And the stalwarts that were behind that, had that vision and that concept. And it got built, back in the 80s. Interesting, fast forward many years later to the 90s, officially opened by Nelson Mandela when it eventually, opened, and he got released from prison. But going back, it was a community project to essentially do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then that community project, once the hall got built, well, sustaining any structure is obviously a challenge.
Yeah.
And so they ran out of money. And
Oh, wow.
the concept was actually born by one of the members. And at that time, it was a concept imported from Australia because he was an athlete walking. And at that time...
An Australian athlete?
No.
Oh,
From Indonesia.
from here?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And today, quite a veteran in the karate scene as well. And essentially, and a lot of people know him for his dojo and things. Mohan Hira was his name, or is his name.
Wow.
And essentially, he imported this concept from Australia. And I still remember them reciting the story to me to say they had this concept about walking and doing a walk, and people will pay to walk. And I'm like, are you crazy? And
We
what was
walk
related to me,
everywhere.
I mean, we were still young when I walked the Gandhi Walk. I still even remember, I mean, it all started off where you went in the morning and they literally wrote your walker number on a ticket or a tag, and I don't know what it was that time, maybe 5 Rand or 10 Rand, or I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
And essentially people walked. And basically, that was then incepted in 1985, and then 1986 was the very first Gandhi Walk.
Okay.
Fast forward several years, I then got involved initially just as a sponsor for the event once I started working, because my mom would be involved, and it's like, you know how community things work.
Yeah.
She's involved, and then you kind of get involved. But again, when we were, with my friends and my family at a water point, we would see this thing happening, and it's like, well, one wise man said, "Be the change you want to see in
Yes,
this
of
world."
course.
And I could see this thing, like, it was there. It was an average event, great, but it had so much more potential.
Yeah.
And so I went for this meeting at the Gandhi Hall at their AGM, and just stood back to hear what they have to say, and again attended the next meeting and the next meeting, and eventually became a member. And through member, was humbly requested to join the committee and stand on the exec.
That's impressive.
And once you get to that point, it's like, okay, we'll do this, but it needs a complete new injection. But you got to understand the dynamics. You're coming into a committee where people are of age and very senior and mature, and they've been doing this for a long while.
Yeah.
So you can't have this young guy come in there and ripping this thing apart and saying, no, we're not doing that.
Making
we're doing
major changes.
that.
Yeah.
So it's like any form of, being a good leader is about integrating. And it's what is blending what they were doing traditionally
Yeah.
and saying, well, there's this new thing called the youth, and I know a little bit about it because I'm part of it.
Yeah. A
And,
diplomatic approach.
and how do we kind of bring my ideas into this? And I must commend the Gandhi Walk Committee. I mean, they were open to my suggestions, open to my ideas, and willing for this young person to come in and, kind of bring new, fresh ideas. And, just because of my career, etc., I'm a forward thinker. And
Yeah.
everything we did in Gandhi Walk as well was planned 3 steps ahead already. It was already 3 years ahead of what we were going to be doing.
Yeah.
And started the concept of a community in unity. So Gandhi Walk didn't have a proper, it had a concept, but it didn't
Yeah.
have a mission statement, a vision, and, you bring in business concepts into a
Yeah.
community thing.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to, accomplish something really magnificent, that's what you had to do. I mean, so much so, that it's a walk that the president had walked,
Wow.
and that's when you're hitting a new type of capability. And the Gandhi Walk embraced all creeds, cultures, races, and over the years to see it move from traditional Indian walkers, predominantly Gujarati, to then spanning the Lenasia community, including Muslim walkers, Tamil walkers, Hindi walkers,
Yeah.
Christian walkers.
Across the board.
Christian has always been a slight challenge because, of course, of the timing. It normally happens on a Sunday
Sunday.
morning, and that's
Yeah.
church time.
Yeah.
But it's been tradition, so it was a challenge. But it then got embraced. And part of one of the things we introduced as the Gandhi Walk Committee is how do we now make this from our walk to everybody's walk, and not just a walk, an event. And Lenasia was hungry for this
Change.
something mega,
Yeah.
that they could own and feel. Because today, when you say the name Gandhi Walk, somebody somewhere in this country has heard about it. And it was fascinating because I was overseas with a business acquaintance, and he heard of this Gandhi Walk. I was like, what are you talking about, And he said, no, his family from Cape Town actually walked it. So, at the tail end of Gandhi Walk, before COVID hit, of course,
Yeah.
it was starting to attract international walkers coming from Dubai and London. And it's not a sporting event, it's still this humble community event.
Yeah.
But the appeal it was starting to have, because of course it was being broadcasted across different continents and countries through feeds from people like BBC and Reuters and stuff like that. So it was becoming this thing. And you would think of now humble beginnings where you come from this community called Lenasia, Stuckaway,
Yeah.
Joburg South, all of a sudden people started feeding this thing and embracing it. So we talk about a community in unity, and that's really the mission that I drove very strong. And in order to make something happen,
Yeah.
you got to drive it. And I was at the forefront of that driving force together with many of the committee members. And everywhere we went, it was how do we integrate, how do we be one, and driving this concept of a community in unity. So yeah, that's a short history of Gandhi Walk. Of course, I'm no longer with the community. My term came to an end about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and I had some other plans. But coincidentally, the biggest Gandhi Walk ever, which was going to take place with some phenomenal plans, had to get
Cancelled.
harshly cancelled.
Yeah.
literally we announced it 2 weeks before. It was, and it was a hard sort thing because I don't think people realize to put a community event like that together,
Yeah, the planning.
attracting thousands of people, it takes
Yeah.
us almost 8 months to 12 months. I mean, we finished the Gandhi Walk literally that next weekend. We are planning the next year's Gandhi Walk because operationally it takes about 500 people
To get it
on
going.
road on that day in terms of volunteers and to mobilize that workforce, all free, remember,
Yes.
as a volunteer to make all of this happen is quite a feat. And so we have a lot of organizations that support the event in that way.
Yeah.
And what was happening is when I go out talking to people, we talked about this concept of a community in unity, and great walkers see one level, but behind the scenes there was so much integration. And that's where it really struck to say, I need to bring this to the fore. I need to tell people what the behind the scenes are. We're working with 30, 40 organizations, and you don't even know about this. And these are from different faiths, different races, from Rotary Club to an ambulance service,
Yeah.
and bringing all that together. I mean, when we have our caucus meetings, and you just see the dynamic set of people and skill sets within that meeting caucus, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And more people needed to see that. So, part of the whole exposure of Gandhi Walk, which moved then from a one day event per year into this brand that basically could gravitate people, not just for one day,
Yeah.
but over the course of the year. But that's of course now part of the PR strategy, because again, bringing my corporate culture into Gandhi Walk,
Yeah.
it lacked vision, mission, marketing strategy. It lacked a PR strategy, and we had to then make sure this brand survives beyond this one day, so that next year when you need to market this Gandhi Walk, people already know it's Gandhi Walk, and it's like, what is that Gandhi Walk thing? So interesting.
That is very
So-
interesting. But so doing this whole social events and community work, that's obviously not what you do for a living. What is it that you do for a living?
Oh no, I think anybody involved in community knows it. It costs you more than it would ever pay you, but the reward is different. The reward when you do community work is phenomenal. We talk about blessings in abundance, and you get
100%.
blessings in so many different ways. I had a good few misses with accidents and things, and when you really sit back and you're thinking, it's like somebody up there has protected me
100%.
and made that difference, and I think it comes from that blessing. But yeah, of course, you can't earn a living from that. So, I guess many people don't know professionally what I do.
100%. That's very true. Not even me. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I probably still don't know.
So today, as it stands, I'm a GM for an international software vendor, California-based software vendor.
Imagine that.
And this little guy sitting in Joburg actually runs Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So from here, I actually run all those territories. And we sell software that basically does protection of data on your devices, from your phone, your tablet, your laptops. And if you look at, just theft of those devices, protection of data, it's so important. And of course, we also protect not just the data itself, but the person, because what you have on there is so important.
That's a very serious job
Yes,
compared
of
to
course.
doing Gandhi Walk.
That's completely
Different
thing,
worlds.
Scott. But you say that, but I think no matter what industry you're in, the principles of marketing, the principles of leadership, the principles of management is all the same.
Yeah.
We all read the same books. Every person I speak to, as captains of the industry, we've all read the same books. Everybody's been through some form of a marketing course or degree,
Yeah.
and the concepts are all the same. And it's about just taking those concepts and applying it to the same thing you're doing on community, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so professionally, that's basically my core job. I'm a GM of a software company, but I have a passion for small business. I have a passion for community, so I have spin-offs based on that essentially nurtures and helps small businesses free of charge. I do a lot of nurturing, and I guess it's just again, when you develop relationships, people will come to me and
Look
it's
up
like,
to
Amit,
you,
know
yeah.
this thing about Facebook, can you help us? It's like, let's take a step back before you even talk about Facebook or Instagram. What is your business? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
It's the fundamentals of business, and just guiding them, and a lot of it is nurturing. So, on that front, I'm also, having a very strong passion for the environment and green. And I guess that stems from, again, coming from humble beginnings. But, with that, through my camaraderie with people like Miss Earth and all of that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I have this strong passion, and I do believe we can make a concerted effort. You can talk about big world concepts,
Yeah. But everything has to start somewhere and start small.
Climate change is influenced by something small we do on the ground.
Yeah.
And I don't have a vision today. I will leave that to the captains of the industry to go change the top. But if we can help change things on the ground,
Yeah.
why not? And so I have started off actually a new community initiative, announced here on your platform for the first time, public knowledge.
Yes. Tell
So
us
to
more.
your followers and your viewers, so it's called the We Go Green Initiative,
Interesting.
and it's in its infancy, so I haven't formally launched it, and everything takes time to build. So
Yeah.
I'll get a lot of that kind of stuff going, and some of the initiatives that will be behind that. But it's got to do with simple stuff that we can do every day to make an influence, right? From planting trees, and when we talk about planting trees, we actually, I think a lot of people don't realize we have this miracle plant in South Africa called the speckworm. Okay, it's
Tell me
actually
more.
called the mafuta plant because elephants eat these things in Africa.
Okay.
We planted about 50 of these. I mean, it's a shrub, and it's very hardy. It can survive in any kind of weather. And you see big brands actually doing it, where they sell it and then the community gets money, etc. But this plant is amazing. It has a 10-time carbon soak-up factor.
Sure.
Okay, and it was so when we went green for Gandhi Walk. In fact, we got an award. We were actually the greenest community event ever. We offsetted 120% of our carbon footprint to various initiatives. How we recycle waste, how we handled a lot of the carbon offsetting, through different initiatives. And speckworms was one of them. Because every walker driving to a walk, every walker, of course, doing certain things at the walk generates a carbon footprint. And so we needed a way to offset a lot of that stuff. And like I said, planting speckworms is a strong passion, and I'll do something with that as We Go Green matures.
Kicks off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So you did.
A sea of many rivers, right?
Yeah, that's your sea of many rivers happening.
Yeah.
So you did Gandhi Walk. You're doing this new going green thing. You have a job. Where does family fit in? Where's the time for family?
Like all things, great credit to my family. I guess when you're dealing with a public person, you got to have a family that's behind you, that understands what's needed.
Yeah.
And so full credit to them. They're behind the scenes. They're always there. They're supporting me. They're always inspiring me. They had many of the events, but, of course, for security and things, I'm very conscious of these things. They're never in a lot of the photos. You don't see them. They're never on the forefront of things.
Yeah.
So many people don't realize that Amit has a family.
Exactly.
But that said, it's a tremendous sacrifice. And of course, if you're attending events all weekend, then you got to find that other balance where I'm giving my my
Family.
daughter time and my wife time, and that happens either during the week or on weekends, and you find this balance.
Do they join you? Do they join you on your community events? I mean, are they a part of it in some way or the other?
Some. They come for the food.
Of course,
She's
everybody.
going to kill me. My daughter's going to kill me. But definitely, they're there on some of them. But to be honest, depending on the type of event, they get bored because daddy disappears with his phone, and then he's talking to people, and we're left standing here, So it depends. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't come. It depends. If it's exciting stuff, if we're going for, movie launches, or, my daughter sneakishly will ask me, Daddy, is there going to be food there? So, no, okay, we're not coming. No, I'm just kidding. But, they come to a lot of the events, definitely.
Okay. So
like yours, and they enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, that was great. And so now that you've mentioned how much of community events you've been a part of, and I'm sure you've watched hundreds and hundreds of art shows, and how do you think we can sort of grow the idea of what you've done in the Sea of Many Rivers? How do you think I can take that concept forward? What is your opinion on that?
So, interesting point, and I guess the concept is varied, right? Because there are lots of different things one could do. But again, if you're doing too many different things, then you kind of lose the
Lose
vision.
it.
You lose the sight of what you're trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
and you got to kind of home that back. And a lot of what you experienced on your platform, because that's really what I see, right? You created a platform and you identified talent and you roped them in and you nurtured some of that talent over your course of, the practicing and all of that stuff. So by the
Yeah.
time it hit main stage, it was of quality that the audience can appreciate.
Yeah.
And I think that's where competition is really healthy. And I think we need to see more of this kind of competition platforms that can uncover talent, sift out the good from the bad. And not to say that everything is bad, but uh, you know, there is some really crappy talent out there that either because somebody told them they're good.
It's a family
you know,
member that
uh,
always goes up to the bus and says, "So you're a
it's
brilliant singer. Put it on social media."
yeah, putting it on social media is one thing, but bringing it to a platform, especially where there's commercials involved. If somebody paid for a ticket, give them quality.
Yes,
And we have
100%.
too much of that in this country where you're paying for a ticket and it actually does a disservice to the art
Yeah.
because you lose so much interest when you just give crap quality.
Also, I think the integrity of the art then also drops, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Because then
absolutely.
who wants to then go again and pay to watch something of that kind of standard?
Yeah, and the reality as well is a lot of the people who are coming is going to be family and friends of
The performer.
the performer or something. And let's be honest, we're all there to encourage and to support. And so sometimes we're not truthful because sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah.
And it can create rifts within friendships and families and things. And so the truth doesn't come out. That what, you're good, but
Not really.
not a paid
Not-
artist.
Not that. Not there yet.
Not there yet. And so that's why competition is a healthy thing, because you know why? It's an independent that can make that comment. And through that independent, you can nurture and of course you can learn. And through learning, you can only aspire. And that's important.
100%. Well, with that said, this interview was very interesting for me, and I learned a whole bunch of new things that I never knew before. Thank you for joining me, Amit. It
Well,
was
ever so
really-
grateful for being on the platform, to be given the opportunity. And to your followers and viewers there, keep watching, keep following us. She's doing some amazing things. So Nandini, keep shining. I always say we can reach for the stars, but imagine you can reach beyond the stars. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Amit. I really appreciate this one.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on today's podcast with Nanz. Today's episode with Amit was a rather interesting one. It just shows how little we know about the people around us, as well as the influence and the power of social media. Please like, share, and subscribe this video. Leave your comments in the comment box below, as well as follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as Spotify. I'll see you guys next time.